We debated if Islam is a religion of peace. We debated single parent households versus two parent households. We talked about transgenderism. So very intense hot button topics. So the Forbidden Courses summer program is a 1-week program. And essentially we had one core course that we took in the program, and that was supplemented with a bunch of different other activities. And the other supplemental activities were we had academic ones, we had super social ones. So I took a class on critical thinking and freedom of expression from Ayan Hirsi Ali, who just has an incredible story. We essentially learned a bunch of different logical fallacies and John Stuart Mills and on liberty.
The main course that I took was taught by Kathleen Stock, and it was called Varieties of Feminism, how it's changed over time. And we would discuss kind of the pros and cons of each and how, and maybe even conjecture about why it changed the way it did.
My main class that met every morning was with Thomas Chatterton Williams. He was teaching a class on Black male autobiography in the United States and the history of Black male experience from our founding. And so in that course, we delved into writings from Frederick Douglass to all the way to James Baldwin. And so that was the main morning section of the course. And then every afternoon we would gather for smaller seminars and workshops with people ranging from Joshua Katz from Princeton to the CEO of Marvel. And it's very cool to, see the intersections of politics and philosophy and economics, but also entrepreneurial ventures and how the two are actually quite connected. And so the seminars are really cool to try and just synthesize what we learned in the classroom in a more real world application.
There was one taught by David Mamet. He was just sort of telling us about his experience working as a writer and a playwright, and then to some extent how being more conservative affected his standing in that kind of social world and how it affected his art. Peter Begosian taught several of his street epistemology lectures. That was sort of about how to have very difficult conversations with people in an actually productive way and things you can do to get people to change their minds. And so he would pull people out of the audience and have them take a position on a given sort of controversial issue and then ask them questions and get them to ask each other questions in a way that was just meant to bring everyone towards more of a consensus.
There were definitely a lot of contentious issues that you feel you can't discuss at universities that we were very open to discussing. So I think people had a certain level of openness to talking about issues that are, maybe really censored from the left, for example, at the institution. So we did feel as if things were less biased towards the left, which I guess would make them more biased to the right, but I think the goal was not to do that, and I think the goal was achieved, in my opinion. So each session had 40 students. There were 4 courses per session, so around 10 students per course.
It ranged from students who had just graduated high school, so they were incoming freshmen, all the way to graduate students.
I was really surprised and impressed by the amount of FaceTime we got and the amount of one-on-one time we got with a lot of the faculty members, specifically at lunch every single day. The professors would sit with us. Oftentimes you'd see, groups of students huddled around Neil Ferguson, for example, as he talked about oral history, and another group of students huddled around Rob Henderson talking about social psychology.
I was really drawn to to the University of Austin's emphasis on civil discourse and free speech and the pursuit of truth. But they were super unique in their dedication and in their construction of a curriculum around those ideals. And it's not something I'd seen elsewhere in terms of summer programs.
What the university is striving to be, if I'm not mistaken, is not to combat political bias in one direction by coming from the other direction, but rather to eradicate political bias whatsoever. Their approach of classical liberalism worked well in opening dialogue.
There were so many different kinds of people. There atheists and Christians and Republicans and Democrats and libertarians, and just every kind of person was there and had things to say. So discussing anything turned into this really rich learning experience.
The founder, Pano Kanelos, definitely insists on the importance of beauty and the importance of one's environment in which they learn and how that contributes to the process of discovery and the pursuit of knowledge. And I think We were in the old Parkland campus in Dallas, which won't be the permanent home of the university, but it was a temporary location for the summer program.
There was like one of the earliest versions of the Magna Carta in there, like the Bible. There's this entire room that I think was dedicated to like Thomas Jefferson was supposed to look like Monticello. It's very beautiful and it's also quite small. And so it did feel like we were kind of immersed in a really gorgeous college.